Hello and welcome everyone to another Starcraft 2 England cast. I've got a really exciting game. It's actually the second one between these two players, and it is Complexity's coLdrewbie versus acslayer. Now, I actually did that the wrong way around. This is Slayer in the bottom right position as the red Terran player, and we have coLdrewbie in the bottom left position as the blue Terran player. So the map is Shakura's Plateau, a really fun map to play on. It's actually one of my favourite maps, and that's mainly due to the natural base being pretty easy to defend, just because you do have this small choke point. Also, you've got this interesting area here, and that can be really fun for drops, because you can drop some tanks down here, lift some marines up here in medevacs, pressure the mineral line, jump backwards and just use the tanks as covering. You've also got this position here. Likewise, you can do the same thing there. And the final point, really, which is why I really love this map, is you have these kind of high ground positions here. And I mean, if you use medevac just to drop up some tanks onto here and onto here, you've really blocked off all of this area of the map completely. And taking out tanks up here, if you've got minerals on the low ground, is insanely difficult, because to get units in close enough, specifically medevacs, to give you vision of this high ground, all the marines can pick them up. And if you move your own marines in to try and deal with the defending player's marines who's got tanks up here, then obviously they just get slaughtered by the tanks on the high ground, and it really is a game defining position. And I mean, the only other thing to note about this map is the third base is an interesting choice for players. On the one hand, you have this area here where you can take a third, and it's geographically closer. It keeps all of your units clumped up more around your main base, and also just gives you this high ground in order to exploit for defense, and it's quite nice. It means you don't have to move too far to defend your third or your natural. Alternatively, you can take a third up in the top position and split the map vertically, and I mean, that's pretty damn good as well. It's more spread out, but it doesn't leave you vulnerable to drops. So both have pros and cons, and I really like maps like that where you do have pros and cons, and you actually have solid decision making on your tactical decisions of where you want to place your bases, what you want to do, and how you want to play the game. And likewise, your opponent can really exploit either decision. I mean, if you take your third base here, especially in TvT, you're opening yourself up to getting a tank siege up in this sort of area here, or around here, and it can be a nightmare to try and deal with that, because you're then confined. Whereas if you take the third base, as I said, drops become an issue. If you come up here to defend a drop here, and they drop in your main base, you have literally all of this area through here to try and run any sort of defensive force, or you have to split your force, which again is less than ideal, because if they've just got one drop ship and you're splitting your army, and they walk in your main entrance with a huge army, and you're going to struggle to defend it. So if we take a look at both players, Slayer now just getting up his natural base. Likewise, so is coLdrewbie. Slayer's slightly ahead with his natural. Slayer has actually gone for both of his gases now though already, whereas coLdrewbie has gone for this no gas build, which I actually think is fairly good. He's getting 2 more barracks onto his initial one fairly early. He's got this command center, and he's actually going in for some really early pressure. It won't do anything, because that bunker is going to be down well before the marines come in, and I mean, the marines will be able to do a lot of damage. One's going to go straight down now, and I mean, that was a bit of an A-move moment for coLdrewbie there. Should have pulled back quicker, because losing those 2 marines is a big loss. It's going to completely stop him being able to apply any pressure now, especially considering the bunker's down. coLdrewbie is just getting his first 2 gases now as well. Meanwhile, Slayer just going for a factory, so one factory off 1 barracks, so going to go very tech heavy this build, and I like that. I think it's effective, and I mean specifically because he stopped that early marine pressure by the good use of the bunker, and also coLdrewbie's slight slip up. But still, if you take a look at coLdrewbie here, he's got these marines positioned on the ramp, and a key thing for any player really, to be honest, to note is see how he's got this kind of arc of his marines round there. It's so he has the maximum surface area in which to attack on anything pushing up his ramp. So always try to do that if you are positioning ranged units at a ramp, or even melee units, because the better your arc, the more damage you can do. There's some great posts on Team Liquid if you do want to go and find out more information about using a concave effectively. So we've actually got an interesting move here by Slayer, taking this hidden third base, and this could really pay off. If coLdrewbie doesn't scout this third base will ultimately win Slayer the game unless he makes a big mistake or two, because he's just going to have so much more income than DrewBie does have, and it's hidden, so it means DrewBie won't know to just go for that push, because he'll assume that Slayer's getting tech behind. Why hasn't he taken his third base? So many variables which DrewBie will be trying to account for if he doesn't know that Slayer has taken his third. Meanwhile, if we take a look at DrewBie's base, he is just massing up Marines. He is getting his factory down now, getting 2 reactors on these barracks and also a tech lab for the combat shield, all very, very standard. Meanwhile, Slayer getting a starport with a tech lab on it, so we're going to see Banshees. He's also getting a second factory with the tech lab, so we see tanks. So it's going to be Hellion tank Banshee most probably, and that's quite an interesting build going on there for Slayer. I mean, he is supply blocked at the moment though, which is never a good position to be in. And to be fair, he has no reason to be supply blocked. He hasn't had any pressure. He has no reason not to have built those supply depots, and he's actually rallying that Banshee straight over here. So again, going to try and harass, but obviously there is a missile turret up, so that Banshee isn't going to be able to do much now. Also a missile turret going down at the natural base, and that was because of a great time scam by DrewBie. DrewBie's also getting Slayer rather is also getting his sensor tower down. I'm not actually sure where that sensor tower is going down. Yeah, here we go. So this will just scout for any drops, any sort of that position I said early on for positioning tanks on the low ground here and harassing. So good play. He's got good vision and knows what's going on. And likewise, DrewBie just positioning this drone up here, but it will get scouted by Slayer. And I mean, that's really, really big. DrewBie trying to do what Slayer's done and take that hidden third. But obviously, Slayer knows what's happening now. Meanwhile, DrewBie has no idea this is here, as far as I know. If we have a look, no, DrewBie has absolutely no clue that base is there. Transferring the SCVs, and obviously, if he had spotted those SCVs moving, it would have been a big loss. And again, Slayer's supply blocked, and DrewBie as well. And I'm going to be honest, you don't expect to see players getting supply blocked at this level. Both of these players are pro players. They have no reason to get supply blocked when they are not being harassed at all. They're not taking much damage. I mean, to be fair, that Banshee is in there now for Slayer, so but it is being dealt with very, very well. It's not done much damage. It has forced the cancel on the command center, but I mean, that Banshee has not done anything that Slayer would have wanted it to do. It's not done the damage to pay for itself, and a Raven actually coming out now for Slayer, so that's a good move. Obviously, the point defense drone would be very, very effective. And here we go. We've got DrewBie moving out now with some Medivacs Marine and a single two Marauders actually. So against this position, I mean, there's a lot of Hellions, and they do have Blue Flame, I believe. Yeah. So Blue Flame is researched and done. So this Marine army of DrewBie will absolutely melt to Blue Flame Hellions, and those Medivacs won't do anything. There's just so many Hellions here. The damage would be absolutely huge. And I don't know if he's going to go and try and scout up for that third base. It'd be a good move to make, but obviously missile turrets going down everywhere for Slayer. And here we go, we've got an engagement going down, and that was a big hit already. And we've got more hits going off, and look at those Marines fall. Those Marines are just dying so quickly. A point defense drone going, not point defense drone, sorry, an auto turret going down for Slayer as well, just force those Medivacs back. And I mean, that was a big loss. I mean, if we take a look here, DrewBie did lose about 100 more minerals in that engagement than Slayer did, so not huge, but again, just those little losses is not something you want. Drop the Marines out just to heal them up, and meanwhile, DrewBie's positioned this Marine here just to see when the third base is being taken, and he has no idea there's this base up there, so that Marine will get taken out. And I mean, DrewBie's thought process right now is most probably going to be, he hasn't taken a third. This is going to be some kind of 2 base all in, because if you don't have a third base at 12 minutes at the pro level, then you've got issues. And that was a good little use of the bushes there to try to hide the vision of DrewBie, to try and get those Hellions out. And siege mode is done, so those tanks are sieged up now, and DrewBie's push is going to be forced back. There's no way he can deal with those tanks. I mean, amazingly, he's still not going to check up in that top position. DrewBie has just finished his command center down here and is morphing it into an orbital command, so going to be going for max economy, no planetary fortress. And upgrade wise, concussive cells for DrewBie, 2-1 on its way as well. Meanwhile for Slayer, +1 vehicle attack and armor on its way, another Banshee out, so it's going to be 2 Banshees. It's really a Hellion siege tank Banshee army, which is a nice mixture, but obviously Vikings are going to deal incredibly well with both the Raven and the Banshees, because there's just one little Marine trying to shoot upwards and he just can't, and sieging those tanks isn't going to make a difference. Slayer, I'm sorry, tanks can't shoot up even when sieged, and that would be crazy if they could. I'm just thinking, the only thing worse it would be if siege tanks could fly. But anyway, those Vikings landing, he's cleared out the air army, so you almost want him to die for any losses he can make. Now, obviously Slayer's lost a lot of units, and we are seeing a drop up here as well now for coLdrewbie. This is a good drop. Slayer having to pull back all of his army, and there are some units here. They might push into the front as well. And if we look at the large amount of damage being done, that command centre is going to be delayed quite significantly. The medevac has now gone down, and coLdrewbie's lost all of that drop. Meanwhile, Slayer is completely out of position for this move forward. Again, it'll be interesting to see what coLdrewbie tries to target down. He is just going to go straight for those Hellions, and obviously Hellions do very, very low damage to Marauders because they are armoured, and all of the Hellions are going to go down. So really, this is really, really good positioning for coLdrewbie. I think that was a cost-effective engagement for him. If we take a look, yeah, that put coLdrewbie 200 minerals, or 200 resources, sorry, ahead in terms of losses, but 4 Thors on the way now for AC Slayer. He's going for a pure mech army, and still coLdrewbie has no idea about this third base up here. The fourth base for Slayer obviously is delayed, and here we go, got another engagement. The tanks are sieged up though, vision being given by that single Banshee over the bushes, so coLdrewbie's in a tough spot. He has got a good scan off, and I mean, those tanks just need to leapfrog their way forward now and just take as much ground as possible. But coLdrewbie's third is happily up now and has been for quite a while. His fourth also just finished, so coLdrewbie is now actually ahead in terms of bases, but third base for Slayer, that hidden third base up here, has been up for absolutely ages. So, I mean, the economy advantage of having 4 bases really catching up for the loss he had earlier. And actually, Slayer going for his 5th base now as well. And that's a little bit greedy, but he's in the position to be. He's 30 feet ahead, and this 4th base is going to go down. There's no way it's going to stay up. I mean, there's just too much damage. A lift does go off, but it's too late. It does go down, and Slayer is now supply blocked, obviously, and when his mech army is just moving around, and mech army is quite immobile. He's left the tank sieged up, which I think is a good move. Obviously, the Thors do huge damage to the Marauders, and coLdrewbie does just get cleaned up, and he's now 40 supply behind, and that's quite a deficit to try and catch up with. And again, those Vikings could go down quickly to the Thors. Good attack for coLdrewbie, but obviously there's just too much stuff for Slayer. He wasn't sieged up, but he neither needed to be, because he just has so much stuff right now, and coLdrewbie's just in a terrible position right now. This 4th base, I believe, or maybe 3rd base for coLdrewbie is down. He's had to put all the SCVs. There's no way he can defend this, even by lifting him. There's just so many Thors there that may actually even go down. He'll need some SCVs there in order to repair, and coLdrewbie just going for mass barracks now, and I mean, this command center probably will fall. I'll keep it up there just to see if it does actually go down eventually. And I mean, it's still just ticking away, it's on fire. Never a good move for a command center to be on fire, they don't like it. And if we look up here, this 3rd base now for coLdrewbie's going to go down, and that command center has now died. So this one has lifted, but again the Thors with their strong air attack are just going to do quite a bit of damage. I mean, obviously they don't do massive amounts, and the SCVs are repairing, but all the SCVs are going to die, and that's huge losses straight away there for coLdrewbie. 31 SCVs killed already. And again, that command center will slowly die. The Thors are just in a good position, and meanwhile coLdrewbie's just trying to get his army out. He's got some Banshees in there now, but great scan by Slayer and coLdrewbie. They both know exactly what each other are doing. But I mean, coLdrewbie hasn't pinned Slayer at all, because he can just siege up and use the Thors to push forward. But meanwhile, there's no siege tanks out at all, I think, for coLdrewbie at this moment in time. Just taking a look, no tanks out for coLdrewbie at all, and that's really meaning he can't hold position effectively. He is going to try and come around with these Banshees, maybe to harass, but they're not going to get anywhere. There's just so many missile turrets there that it's just not going to do anything. And now coLdrewbie's down on 2 bases, only one of which is mining his mine. He's not actually mined out yet at his main base, but he basically is. And I mean, it's 2 bases to 4 bases now, so never a position you want to be in. These Banshees are just going to sneak around and try and come down to here, and they could actually do some damage there. There's no tanks around the back, and a big engagement coming in at the top here. The tanks are all sieged up, and coLdrewbie's just lost so much there. He's 100 feet behind all but a few. I mean, those sort of losses are just never a situation you want to be in. And medevac may go down, does just survive, and to be honest, that's his only saving grace. And I have actually lost those 2 medevacs. Here they are. They're trying to fight a Thor, and that's just never going to win. The Thor is always going to win this engagement. A scan does go off, and just in case they do cloak, but there's no cloak tech out as far as I know for coLdrewbie here. If we take a look, no, cloak hasn't actually been researched at all. Looking around, I seem to be going crazy. No, there is no cloak down, and there's the GG. I mean, I missed an engagement, I think, in the middle, but it was all but over for Drewbie anyway. He was over 100 food supply. He lost his 2 harassing banshees to a single Thor. Slayer had 4 bases here, and I mean, those 4 bases compared to a mine down main, all but a little bit. A third trying to go down for Drewbie as well, but absolutely amazing play by Slayer. I think what really let Drewbie down, and if you watch the other game as well, Drewbie favours not getting tanks at all in the games against Slayer, and I think, to be honest, that's where he loses it, because he can't hold the position. Once Slayer does get up those tank forces and siege mode, he can just play very defensively, slowly roll the tanks forward, leapfrog his way forward until he gets into a good position like he was here. And once he's got that, then he's sieged up and Drewbie's all but done for. And it was a very, very nice play. I think what really complemented Slayer was he went slightly overboard with missile turrets. I mean, he had them everywhere. And that's what he needed to. He had an immobile mech army, and by getting lots of missile turrets literally everywhere, any drop which tried to go down was immediately stopped. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed. I will link the 2 games together because there were 2 between Drewbie and Slayer. So check out the other one. If you did enjoy it, I mean, please subscribe. I've been trying something different with my sound as well, so give me any comments if you think the sound is better than some of my previous casts. And, I mean, by all means, tune in again. And if you've got any games you'd like me to cast or think are really good games, send them to sc2england@hotmail.co.uk. Brilliant, thank you very much, and tune in again.